Hello and welcome to Neighbor. I'm your host for today, Daniel Kasnitz, and we're very pleased to have with us Ms. Barbro Hansson, who is the minister at All Souls Church. Thank you so much for being with us, Barbro.
Thank you for inviting me.
Oh yeah, welcome to the show. Let's start in. Where did you come from and how did you wind up in Brattleboro?
Well, that's a really big question. Where did I come from and how did I end up in Brattleboro? Immediately before coming to Brattleboro, I was not that far away. I was in Plattsburgh, New York. Of course, originally, I come from Sweden, and that's a little bit further away.
It's a bit of a hike.
Yes, it is. But, you know, coming from Sweden and ending up in Brattleboro, Vermont, is a really good way to go. I find myself feeling very much at home here in Brattleboro, politically, culturally, and religiously as well. The climate is almost exactly like what I grew up with in Sweden.
Wow.
So,
which part of Sweden did you grow up in?
I was born and raised just north of Stockholm in what back then used to be the northernmost suburbs of Stockholm, which meant very rural suburbs. We actually lived in a apartment complex across from a farm, a dairy farm. And I remember walking from our apartment building across the street to the farm to get fresh milk in our milk pail.
Wow.
Yeah.
So was that in any way similar to how Brattleboro is developed now, that suburb from your youth?
Brattleboro is much bigger than the suburb I lived in back then. Currently, it may be similar in size, but back then it was more like almost Newfane.
Okay, that makes sense.
Except there were apartment buildings. The apartment buildings were the focus of the community, really.
Now, Sweden to Brattleboro is a jump, and the way most of the folks in the community have met you is most likely through your work at All Souls Church as the minister of the Unitarian Universalist congregation there. How did you make that journey? What got you interested in Unitarian Universalism in particular, and then being a minister in specific?
Well, it's a long and winding road that brought me here to Brattleboro from Sweden. I left Sweden in 1973, at the time just for vacation. I was heading to Greece. It was the month of May, and I was going to Greece for the sun and warm water and for the simple relaxation and beauty of it. And I was planning to spend a whole month there with a friend. On the way to the Greek island of Hydra, I bumped into an American. He was stationed in the army, but that particular weekend he was on his way on a weekend adventure. He was not in uniform, so I had no clue. He and I struck up a conversation, and one thing led to another, and I got to know him really well during my stay in Greece. And when I returned to Sweden to work again, I realized that I had fallen in love and that I wanted for that to have a chance. And so I went back down. I actually quit my job and went back down to Greece to check the relationship out. And it's probably maybe not every parent's nightmare, but nearly every parent's nightmare to have a young daughter go off like that without any sort of safety net except a return ticket home.
Right.
I got married a few months later and came over to this country that way. And first arrived in Virginia. The man I married, Mark was his name, he extended his tour of duty. It was by then 1974, okay. And the energy crisis had erupted here in this country, and I think the economic situation was very depressing. So he re-upped his tour, and he was stationed outside of Washington at first, with his mother living in Charlottesville. Charlottesville, Virginia became our sort of home base, more or less. Then we went off to New York City, where he finished his tour of duty. He did altogether 8 years in the Army. And our daughter was born there, Karen. And when he was discharged, we ended up moving back to Virginia to be nearer his family, to the Shenandoah Valley, where things were very conducive for a young family to raise a child. That was in 1978. We moved back there. Now, Mark was the one who introduced me to Unitarian Universalism. In Sweden, I had never heard of that faith tradition. By virtue of being born in Sweden to Swedish parents, I was a Swedish Lutheran, member of the church by birth, and baptized as an infant. I did what pretty much 99% of young people did back then in Sweden. I went to catechism classes and was confirmed probably age 13 or 14. But all that time, and especially as I entered into my teen years, I started asking questions, and I wondered a lot about religion, about different faith traditions, and I was encouraged, not in the Swedish church, but in school. The curriculum included, in public school, the curriculum included religion, survey classes in religion. So we studied Christianity, Protestantism,